Chapter 43. The clarion call of these messages is formulated to reach into the very center of each heart and mind to resonate there. It is intended to be an internal process that will enable each one embracing the possibilities contained within them to establish a vantage point from which to gauge their progressing personal transition. If each will consider the changes in their views of the world events as they are reported now and as they were perceived a few weeks ago, a considerable difference in the ability to discern the magician at work should be possible. The understanding of the meaning of self-empowerment within the personal experience and relationships should also be apparent. The consideration of this might be approached as the difference between submissive, assertive, and aggressive. It is through application of the universal laws that balance and harmony is achieved, a middle ground of experience. Once this is experienced, it becomes easier to realize when one leaves this balance toward one or the other of the polarities. It is taught in the current media, religious foci, that goodness is the ideal. Balance is not found in the extreme of either polarity. It is through learning to discern where in the process each experiences or is leading in the play between the polarities that allows for wisdom to be attained. The new paradigm will come into manifestation when a sufficient quota of humans on the planet identifies with its tenets. These will focus its becoming without the aggressiveness of an enslaver that would force its ideals on her fellow humans, or the submissive victim that would purposefully refrain from participation assuming that others will accomplish it for them. The ideal participant will employ the universal laws of attraction through purposeful intent to manifest the new paradigm, actively sharing the concepts and allowing the process to unfold by holding the intent assertively within the consciousness. The focus will remain steadfastly within their awareness as the world and personal events move through their chaotic process of dismantling what now exists to allow the new to manifest. Unfortunately, the new cannot superimpose itself over the top of the present firmly held belief systems. The combined present belief systems hold the current disastrous stream of events in place. The belief in the repetitions of past experience of war, pestilence, disease, and painful deaths as the proper end to a lifetime of victim sacrifice for a future reward is rigidly held and constantly supported by the planners of another round of their virtual reality games. It is through these simple messages that those of genuine concern are reaching out to counter the focus of literally thousands of years of deliberately ingrained manipulative programming into the individual and collective psyche of humanity. It is a very large expectation that is being placed in these messages in this endeavor to reach those who are at a state of evolvement to resonate with the truths contained within them. The realization of the futility of continuing on in the age-old pattern of allowing others to write all the rules of the game is the trigger that brings forth the emotion and commitment to become a part of the momentum for moving on through to a new goal. Just as several individuals can participate in a single event and each perceive and experience it differently, so also can a multitude of perceptions of what the new paradigm experience will be for each encompass the same definitive goal and accomplish that purpose. When the new paradigm is birthed, indeed each will experience it uniquely. If it were to be a totally defined picture, it would again become encapsulated and enslaving. Within the laws of the universe, what you term ethics and morality are limited understandings. Within the higher dimensions, which is the purpose of leaving the current lesser vibratory experience through the new paradigm, it is possible for each to perceive the purposeful intent of all. This is not necessarily in detail at the lesser vibratory levels. Therefore dishonesty and aggressive intent is known, and those with that level of intent find only those of similar intent to interact with. If there are no victims and only a group of aggressors to interact with, there is no game. It is to be expected that those ingrained thought patterns will show up in the beginning, however they will soon fade away as they are recognized. Do upper-level dimensions lack challenge? No indeed. The challenges become subtler and even more rigorous to discern. Experience in the higher dimensions is not a boring heavenly evenness. The adventure of self-contemplation and growth becomes more and more interesting and the rewards more desirable. There will be no regrets for giving up the current belief systems and mode of experience, of that each can be absolutely sure. The call for study, contemplation, commitment, and follow-through by defining the purpose and spreading the concept now is unfolding before each reader. It is doubted that any who are not seriously contemplating the process and anticipating the possibilities of the future of new experience will have reached this point in the messages. Both the logical and the emotional aspects resonate and the shift in consciousness is happening. Even those few that do turn away will not be able to return to their previous perspective of the current situation as it progresses toward the planned dark and dramatic shift. Those who do not choose to actively participate can yet share by simply holding the idea of the possibility of the time of the reign of the rainbow man arriving now. Legend has it that the first people on the planet climbed up out of the earth through a trapdoor. The Rainbow Man archetype is right now loosening the latch of the trapdoor that will allow his entry into the next level of manifested experience. It is time for this to happen. Chapter 44. The power of subtle thought when focused through the converging point of mutual agreement by a group purposefully representing a whole for the highest and best good of that whole is quite beyond the ability of the limited third-dimensional mind to comprehend. There is now documented evidence of the power of prayer in the recovery from illness when it is focused by doctors, nurses, friends and families for the good of the patient. The dynamic potential that is tapped is the agreement held within the focusing group's desire to bring forth the highest and best good for the person. The desire is usually limited to the person returning to an apparently healthy state. However, that is not always the true highest and best good for that person, since the purpose of the lifetime is usually unknown to the person and to those attending them, so it is best to leave the focus open. Further, the person themselves may have already placed their decision as to their future into the flow of creation. Again, this brings us back to the concept of thought thinking. The flow of creative energy that focuses each individual into manifestation to begin with and then maintains them in focus is intelligent thought thinking and is totally aware of what the highest and best good is in every instance when it is directed to think within that concept. Self-aware consciousness is manifested thought aware of itself within its manifested surroundings. It is creation checking itself out for the purpose of knowing not only itself, but investigating its abilities to manipulate its potential to experience and know itself to a greater extent. Each of you are creational thought engaged in this marvelous experiment. You are intelligent thought surrounded by the potential of intelligent thought. The only way you can be controlled is to allow yourselves to believe you are something you are not. You must be convinced to believe you are something you are not. You must be convinced that you are powerless and subject to the will of others, thus a victim. The intelligent thought that surrounds you is subject to your intentional will to direct it. If you fail to give it direction, it merely supports whatever direction someone else gives it regarding you. Thus, through induced ignorance, humanity has given consent to being manipulated. The most effective method for literally stealing your power has been through the diversion of the use of that power by convincing you to direct it outside yourselves to an unknown and little understood source, called God. All power is vested in this vague unknowable entity that may or may not redirect the energy that is given to it back again to the worshipping requester. This is further diluted if the energy must first be directed through a priest-like entity, who then directs it to the God and requests it to be returned to you. The point being, it is your power to direct as you see fit. You are the singular focus of creation experiencing as you. The Bible contains a quoted question that reads something like, "Know you not that you are gods?" Indeed, you know it now. Learning to direct this power in harmony with the laws that underlay or support the wholeness of the flow of creation is the lesson to be accomplished. This cannot be effectively achieved unless the concept is known and accepted so that it may be practiced through experience into wisdom. Humanity on this planet is experiencing what results when the power of this energy is purposefully misused to restrict the evolvement of others for distorted experimentation. These entities are learning only how and to what extent others can be limited and manipulated into sacrifice and suffering. Observing is not experiencing into wisdom. Humanity is learning that sacrifice and suffering only brings more of the same. It is time to awaken and realize that continuing on the same path will only continue the pattern. In order to change this experience, the current pattern must be acknowledged and a new pattern conceived to replace it. It may be difficult to accept that what has been taught for generations upon generations has been deliberately corrupted and given to you as truth in order to deceive and manipulate the entire population of a planet. It is more difficult to conceptualize a group focus that is so distorted as to spend eons of sick and tile time in the game of doing this dastardly deed. It is only necessary to accept it as what it is and resolve to withdraw your permission to be one of their plastic play pieces that bends and twists to fit their desires. It is the time now to take back your right to self-determination of your own present and future. This process leaves you not with less, but with more. You know in truth who and what you are. You now have a process in which to acquaint yourself with your inherent right and power to determine your own path. Leave the future of those who would enslave to the law of attraction. The key to their future is your withdrawal of approval and cooperation. In the moment in which their intense control focus is broken, the energy shifts for them also. Knowing this is enough. Do not spend time even considering their future. Be only concerned with creating your own. It is task enough to occupy each and all of you for some time to come. Now is an excellent time to begin. Does a new future require that every aspect of your current experience be left behind? Not necessarily, but each must be considered carefully so that it fits in the wholeness that serves the evolvement of all. It is best to begin with the statement of purpose, then a simple framework that can be painted in with what is appropriate, remembering what is appropriate for one is not what may be appropriate for all. The application of the universal laws allows for diversity in harmony. A worthwhile goal to remember. If each is responsible for their individual intentions and actions, all will come together in amazing coordinated cooperation. Within the true realization of time there is only now. The past is over and the future is yet to manifest as the nows pass into the past. The dream of the new paradigm begins now and continues now. The following short list of books will introduce the reader to the awareness that the truth of the deceptions that have been perpetrated on the planetary citizens of Earth is known and has been researched prior to these messages. The ancient records that have been found and more or less accurately translated have revealed much to support the hypothesis briefly mentioned in this book. Chronological information of the activities leading up to the present support the picture of continuing enlargement of the long-standing plan for planetary violation. The information in the books listed below should be read with discernment, for each author has made their own interpretations, often based on the opinions of others, and come to their own conclusions. These do not necessarily agree with each other or the information within the messages. It is for each to find the confirmations and contradictions within them and to come to their own conclusions. Much more data is available to be found if diligent research is initiated. However, research and reading for verification should not divert those committed to manifesting the new paradigm of experience from their focus. End chapter 44.